your mind will not shut up. It replays the same conversation for the 14th time, dissects a decision you already made, and invents problems that do not exist yet, and you call this thinking. It is not thinking. It is a slow, self-inflicted paralysis that robs you of your sleep and your sanity. You are watching this because you feel trapped inside your own head, running in circles that lead nowhere while your actual life waits for you to return to it. There is one technique the Stoics used that kills the spiral in under 60 seconds, and I will show you exactly how it works as we break down this ancient system for mental clarity. This is not about being smart. It is about regaining control of the only thing you actually own, your attention. You have to understand that your brain is not trying to make you miserable on purpose. It is using a threat detection system that was designed for a world with literal lions and rival tribes, and it is trying to apply that same level of urgency to a passive-aggressive email or a comment your friend made at dinner. You are not broken, but your mental hardware is outdated. Your mind treats a social slight or a career uncertainty the same way it would treat a predator lurking in the grass. This creates a feedback loop where your body feels the stress of a threat, which tells your brain that something must be wrong, which causes your brain to search for more problems to solve, and the cycle continues until you are exhausted. The Stoics diagnosed this condition 2,000 years ago when life was arguably much more dangerous than it is now. Seneca understood this when he wrote that we suffer more often in imagination than in reality, and 2,000 years later, that line still cuts, because it is still true. You have stayed awake until 3 in the morning, replaying a mistake you made 5 years ago. In that moment, the only person hurting you was you. The person you were thinking about had likely forgotten the event entirely, but you were still there, whipping yourself with the memory of it. You were suffering in an imaginary world, while your physical body was safe in bed. This is the core of the overthinking problem. You have allowed your imagination to become more vivid and more influential than the world right in front of your eyes. Now I am going to give you the single most powerful question you can ask yourself when the spiral starts, because the Stoics built their entire philosophy around this one idea. The foundation of mental peace is the dichotomy of control, a concept famously taught by Epictetus. He argued that the chief task in life is simply this: to identify and separate matters so that we can say clearly to ourselves which are externals, not under our control, and which have to do with the choices we actually control. Most of what you overthink falls into the category of things you cannot control. You cannot control what your boss thinks of your presentation after you have already given it. You cannot control if your partner stays with you forever. You cannot control the weather, the economy, or the traffic. Yet, these are the exact things that keep you up at night. When you catch yourself spiraling, you must ask yourself one question: can I do something about this right now? If the answer is yes, then do that thing and stop thinking. If the answer is no, then you must accept that you are not thinking, you are just torturing yourself. Consider the specific example of sending a vulnerable message and waiting for a reply. You see the 3 dots appear and disappear. You begin to construct 100 different reasons why they haven't responded. You wonder if you said too much or if you sounded desperate. In this situation, the only thing in your control was the decision to send the message. Once it is sent, the outcome belongs to the universe. Marcus Aurelius wrote that you always own the option of having no opinion, and that things do not have to affect you unless you let them. This is not about suppressing your emotions or pretending you do not care. It is about choosing where to aim your mind so that you do not waste your limited energy on things that do not belong to you. Overthinking thrives in the abstract because as long as a worry stays in your head, it can change shapes and grow larger than life. The moment you put thoughts on paper, they lose their power because they become static. The Stoics were obsessive journalers, not because they were trying to write literature, but because they needed a place to wrestle their own minds onto the page. Marcus Aurelius never intended his personal writings to be published. He was simply talking to himself, reminding himself to stay grounded. If you want to stop the loop, you need to conduct a journal dump. Set a timer for 10 minutes and write every single thought that is circling your head. Do not organize them, do not try to make them sound smart, and do not censor yourself. Just dump the contents of your brain onto the paper. When you see your worries written out, most of them look absurd and small. The ones that do not look absurd become actionable. You can look at a sentence like, "I am worried I will lose my job," and then immediately write out 3 steps you would take if that actually happened. This works because overthinking is your brain trying to solve something by running the same loop over and over. Writing interrupts that loop and gives the thought somewhere to land. Seneca practiced a version of this through evening reflection, where he would review his day not to judge himself, but to process and release the events so they wouldn't clutter his mind the next morning. By externalizing the internal, you stop being the victim of your thoughts and start being the observer of them. Everything so far has been about responding to overthinking after it starts, but this next technique is about rewiring your brain so it happens less in the first place. Overthinking is ultimately a discipline problem. Your mind wanders and spirals because you have never trained it to stay in one place or to obey your commands. The Stoics practiced voluntary hardship like cold exposure, fasting, or deliberate silence, not for punishment, but for mastery over their own impulses. When you deliberately step into a cold shower, your mind has exactly one thought. There is no room for the spiral of what-ifs or the dissection of past failures. There is only the cold. This is a daily practice of forcing your brain to focus on the now instead of running simulations of the future. When you regularly choose discomfort, your baseline anxiety drops because you have proven to yourself that you can handle hard things. Overthinking is often fueled by a deep-seated fear that you will not be able to cope if things go wrong. Voluntary discomfort is your answer to that fear. You are telling your brain that you have already practiced handling bad things and that you will be fine regardless of the outcome. Seneca believed that difficulties strengthen the mind, just as labor does the body, and by seeking out small challenges, you build a mental callus. This makes you less reactive to the minor stresses of daily life. When your boss is late to a meeting, you do not spend 20 minutes wondering if you are about to be fired because you have already trained your mind to be steady under pressure. You have built a foundation of resilience that makes the frantic energy of overthinking feel foreign and unnecessary. There is a Stoic technique that most people get wrong because at first glance it looks like it encourages overthinking. It is called Premeditatio Malorum, or the Premeditation of Evils. This is the practice of deliberately imagining the worst-case scenario. The difference between overthinking and premeditation is that overthinking is passive, endless, and emotional, while premeditation is active, time-limited, and rational. You sit down and you face the worst case head-on. You ask yourself what would actually happen if you lost your house, if your relationship ended, or if you failed your biggest goal. You walk through the steps of what you would do next. Most of the time, you will find that the answer is that you would survive. Once you have genuinely faced the worst outcome and accepted that you could handle it, the anxiety dissolves because it has nothing left to threaten you with. Seneca advised that we should imagine the loss of everything we value, not to become pessimistic, but to become fearless. If you are overthinking the job interview, stop trying to convince yourself it will go perfectly. Instead, imagine bombing it. Imagine they laugh at you and you don't get the job. Then what? You go home, you eat dinner, and you apply for another job the next day. The sun still rises. When you stop running away from the worst-case scenario and start looking at it with a steady gaze, the power it has over you evaporates. You realize that your imagination was much more cruel than reality could ever be. If you only take one thing from this video, make it that realization. But if you are still here, there is more the Stoics have to offer. When we are stuck in a spiral, our problems feel like the entire world. We lose our sense of scale and believe that a single mistake is a catastrophe. The Stoics used a technique called the view from above to regain perspective. They would imagine themselves rising above their own bodies, looking down at their city, then their country, then the entire planet. From that height, your specific worries about a text message or a missed deadline look microscopic. Marcus Aurelius frequently reminded himself of the vastness of time and space to keep his ego in check. He realized that billions of people have lived and died with the same intense worries that he had, and now they are all gone. This is not meant to make your life feel meaningless, but to make your problems feel manageable. Most of the things you are overthinking today will not matter in 5 years. Many will not even matter in 5 weeks. By intentionally zooming out, you strip the emotional charge away from the situation. You are just one person among billions, living in one moment among eternity. This realization provides a profound sense of relief. It allows you to take yourself less seriously and to realize that the universe is not waiting for you to be perfect. You are allowed to make mistakes. You are allowed to fail. When you view your life from this cosmic perspective, the frantic need to control every outcome disappears, and you can finally breathe. Another way to kill the overthinking cycle is to practice what the Stoics called Amor Fati, or the love of fate. This is the idea that you should not just tolerate what happens to you, but actually embrace it. Overthinking is often a form of resistance. You are thinking so much because you are trying to find a way to make reality different than it is. You are wishing you hadn't said that thing, or wishing that the other person would act differently. This resistance is the source of your pain. Marcus Aurelius wrote that a blazing fire makes flame and brightness out of everything that is thrown into it. He believed that we should be like that fire, taking every obstacle and every unwanted outcome and using it as fuel for our own growth. When you adopt this mindset, overthinking becomes impossible because there is no bad outcome. If you get the job, that is good. If you don't get the job, that is also good because it gives you a chance to practice resilience or to find a better fit. You stop replaying the past because you realize that the past happened exactly as it had to, and you stop fearing the future because you know you can use whatever happens to your advantage. This is the ultimate form of mental freedom. It is the total acceptance of reality as it is, which leaves your mind clear and ready to focus on what you need to do right now. All overthinking is a form of time travel. You are either stuck replaying the past or rehearsing the future, but neither of those places exists. The only place where you have any power is right here in this moment. Marcus Aurelius repeatedly wrote about confining yourself to the present moment as a survival strategy. When you catch the spiral starting, you need to perform a hard reset by forcing your attention onto your physical senses. Feel the weight of your body in your chair. Notice the temperature of the air on your skin. Listen to the furthest sound you can hear. This is not some soft mindfulness exercise. It is a tactical strike against a brain that has lost its way. The Stoics understood that the present moment is the only place where you can actually live. The past is a ghost that cannot be changed, and the future is a guess that may never happen. When you are overthinking, you are essentially abandoning the only time and place where you actually exist. By returning to the senses, you anchor yourself back in reality. Your mind will resist this at first because it has a habit of running away, but every time you pull it back to the present, you are weakening the habit of overthinking. You are training yourself to stay home in your own life instead of wandering into imaginary worlds that only cause you pain. To protect yourself from future spirals, you must build what the Stoics called the inner citadel. This is a mental fortress that is independent of external circumstances. You build this fortress through the daily practice of the principles we have discussed. It is not something you do once, it is a way of being. When you consistently practice the dichotomy of control, when you journal your thoughts, and when you embrace the present moment, you are laying the bricks of this fortress. Eventually, you reach a point where the opinions of others or the uncertainties of the future cannot penetrate your walls. You still feel emotions and you still have thoughts, but they no longer have the power to knock you off balance. Marcus Aurelius said that the mind that is free from passions is a very citadel, for man has no stouter fortress in which to find refuge and be forever invincible. This invincibility does not mean that you never face challenges. It means that you have a place of total stillness inside yourself that you can return to whenever the world gets loud. Overthinking is what happens when you have no fortress and you are at the mercy of every passing thought. Building the inner citadel is the work of a lifetime, but it starts the moment you decide that your peace of mind is more important than your desire to control the uncontrollable. The final and most effective cure for overthinking is action. Overthinking is the opposite of movement. It is a state of being stuck in one place while your mind runs 1,000 miles an hour. The Stoics were not just thinkers. They were men of action who held high offices and led armies. They knew that the best way to clear the mind is to engage the body and the will in a task. When you find yourself paralyzed by a decision, the Stoic advice is to pick a direction and move. Any movement is better than the stagnation of the spiral. Even if you make a mistake, you have gained information that you can use to adjust your course. Thinking will never give you the clarity that action provides. Epictetus taught that we should not be satisfied with mere learning, but should add practice and then training. This applies to your thoughts as well. Instead of thinking about how to stop overthinking, you must practice the act of stopping. You must train your mind to shut down the loops by replacing them with a physical task or a concrete goal. When you are busy doing something that matters, you don't have time to worry about what someone thought of your shoes 3 years ago. Action is the natural enemy of the spiral. It grounds you in reality and gives you a sense of agency that overthinking tries to take away. When the mind starts to spin, get the body moving. Do not wait for the clarity to come first. Move, and the clarity will follow. That voice in your head that will not shut up is not your enemy. It is simply an untrained version of you. It is a system designed to protect you that has forgotten its purpose. The techniques we have explored are not just ideas to think about. They are tools to be used. The Stoics did not have access to modern distractions or the comforts we have today, yet they faced the same restless minds and the same late-night anxieties. They solved it through the rigorous application of reason and the relentless focus on what they could control. Tonight, when the spiral starts and your mind tries to pull you into the past or the future, I want you to try just one of these methods. Do not try to master all of them at once, just choose one. Write your thoughts down until the paper is full, or force yourself to stay in the present by focusing on your breath, or ask yourself the one question that changes everything: is this in my control? Do it just once and notice the shift in your energy. Notice how the problem that felt like a mountain suddenly looks like a pebble. The tools are ancient. They have been tested by emperors and prisoners alike, and they work. You are no longer a victim of your own mind. You are the architect of your own peace. The door to the cage has been open this entire time. All you have to do is walk through it.